Welcome to another episode of StartProto's ProtoCast. Today we're with Tyler Williams. He's our newest customer success engineer. We hired him a few months back in November. Super excited to have him on board. Figured we'd take today to kind of go through a bit of his journey and kind of how we got here. Tyler, do you want to give a quick intro?
Sure. Man, I have done this 40 times in the past 3 months, but here we go again. Yes, my name's Tyler. I'm currently a customer success engineer over here at StartProto. It's been quite a journey getting here. Oddly enough, getting to StartProto itself, I actually received a cold email at my last job asking if I wanted to try StartProto out. I was like, I'll do you one better. I'll send you a job application. And sure enough, here I am today. I originally started off in the manufacturing sector. I've been in the manufacturing sector for about close to a decade. Started off as a machinist, shipping, picking up parts, and slowly getting into a position that I was actually running a company located down in Texas. We specialized in EDM work and got pretty good at trying to get the thing modernized. I went through, I believe, 3 ERP adoptions and migrations, and then just trying to find things that worked. It was a challenge. I mean, all the major players, we've ran through them. It was a mess. Finally found one that stuck, and then finally found one that was a bit more modernized, and we were actually able to start doing a lot of automations, connecting with APIs and all that fun stuff. And that's kind of where I left things there. Now I'm excited to be with StartProto and getting to do that for a whole bunch of other people as well.
Yeah, exactly. It's actually, I guess on the application note, it was funny. I'd posted the job position and maybe not 2 or 3 hours later, Tyler applied. And, actually that's not quite true. We'd had the post up for a little bit, but Tyler had applied maybe 2 hours before I went back to check the board. And I was literally just complaining to my co-founder Zach. I was like, okay, like there's just a bunch of trash applicants out here. Look at this, like for some work at Chick-fil-A. Not that that's bad, but I was like, none of these people are going to be able to relate to a customers. And then Tyler came along. I was like, you know what? Never mind. We'll interview this one. So
I
it's kind of funny
didn't
how
even get to finish creating a password for the job posting website before you responded back to me.
Yeah, I was like, wait, hold on. We got to wait to get this one before he goes away. So yeah, super excited to have him. I guess just starting out at the beginning. Obviously, I think out of high school you started out as a machinist. Kind of talk through that journey, how you got into manufacturing to begin with, and
I mean, it really boiled down to necessity at that point. My family kind of hit a rough patch, and at that point, I kind of had to start putting some priorities in order of what I needed to get done for myself, and then what the family needed at the time, and that ultimately ended up with me coming back and working in a machine shop. It was challenging, especially at that time point. There was just not a lot of people my age in that industry, so having to jump into it with people that I'd necessarily an age group that I've never really interacted with before then, and getting myself up to speed, and then of course trying to help where I could with the family issues. It was real rough at the beginning. I mean, I was working close to 100-hour weeks, and anything they needed done in the shop I was doing. I mean, I was driving trucks, I was running machines, I was cleaning up parts, I was doing every little thing that I possibly could, just trying to get all the hours that I could. I feel like that's a pretty common answer for why people get into manufacturing. I don't know, a lot of the customers we've talked to, and I've heard about their backstories, it sounds very similar to the experiences that I went through when I was younger. I wouldn't say that this was definitely the route that I thought I'd see myself going to at all. But, now being on the other side of it, I don't think I could have found a better fit for myself.
It's interesting. Usually you find, people will get into manufacturing is one of those few industries where like how hard you work is directly correlated with your outcome, right? And obviously you put in the hours and kind of worked your way up. Obviously started grunt work, right? But I know when we picked you up, you were basically running a whole shop, right? So I guess walk through a little bit of how
Oh
you
man,
got from
yeah.
the start to there.
When I first started, they didn't even trust me with machines. I wasn't able to touch machines. I wasn't able to look at the machines. All I was doing was cleaning out the sludge out of the plunge EDM machines, and I was running trucks. That was it. We actually had a hurricane pass by down in Houston. I believe that was Harvey. And everybody was locked out of the shop except for me, because I was renting a place next door to the place just so that I could keep an eye on it at night because I was getting paid for it. So I ended up being the only person that could show up to work for the next week. And sure enough, the owner was like, okay, well, you're here. You're going to help me clean up, first of all. Second of all, I'm going to teach you how to run a machine because we got work to do. And after that, I took every little opportunity I could. I mean, we started running the machines at that point. I learned how to run the wires first and then eventually the plunge. I kind of favored the wires more than anything. They're just cleaner. And then from there, we got the wires running, and I started noticing we needed some repair work done. There was some damage from the storm, and then we also had a machine that's been down and just sitting for a while. And during my off hours, I'd actually just stay by and I'd just poke around, try to figure out what was going on with the machines and try to fix them. And sure enough, I got one machine up and running, and then I made small tweaks to the other, got that one up and running as well. And that became my new other responsibility, fixing machines. And that was a never-ending battle on that one, constantly learning. But yeah, that gave me a bit more responsibility in the company. So now I was running and fixing machines. And then to top it off, we had new machines we had to learn how to program. These things weren't running just straight G-code. They were running their own proprietary UI. And we had to learn how to run that. We had to learn how to use the particular CAM software that it mixed to. So that was another opportunity for me to learn, and then second to apply that to get more responsibility in the company. At that point, I was finally able to get a promotion into actually managing the shop floor, actually getting things organized and running it. It was more title than anything because it was just mean I get to work longer. But that continued from there. So, I was at that point just running things and just found other excuses. We actually got to a point after that we got really good at these new machines that we started running, the ones with the very specialized UI. And we continued to buy more of them. And I would fix them up and we would grow, and then we'd buy more, and then I'd fix them up and then we would grow. And sure enough, by the end of, I believe it was 2018, we doubled the size of machines that we had in the company. We actually got to a point
and you picked those things up for a steal, right? What's the model again?
They're called Agi. This is before they merged with Charmy, which is now their company now, the George Fisher or something. But yeah, they're really, really, really nice wire machines. They're really gorgeous machines. It's just they use their own particular UI. And not a lot of people nowadays know how to still use that UI. But yeah, you can get them for a steal. Oh my goodness. We get them anywhere from like $2,000 to $5,000, and it just needs a new board or it needs a new motor or something like that. Something real easy. And goodness, I think before we left, I started there, we only had maybe 7-8 machines. And I think by the time I left, we had close to 26, 27.
Yeah, and you said you developed some like extra kind of IoT stuff on top of them, right? To make them a little easier to work with and...
Oh, yeah. That was way later on.
Okay.
Yeah, so steady the course, we continued to grow. We ended up opening a different location, got that all set up, and all well said and done. By the time the pandemic rolled around, I was becoming the director of the operations of the company. At that point, my role kind of pivoted, especially around the pandemic. I stopped dealing with the day-to-day operations of the actual orders and more of the day-to-day operations of the business. At that point, that's when I started focusing in on how could we improve things, how could we do better with how we're actually managing as a company. Started working towards putting in our first ERP systems because at that point it was still very much QuickBooks, fax machine, QuickBooks, fax machine, QuickBooks, email.
Yeah, not even Excel in there.
Yeah, no, not even Excel. Yeah, it was rough. So started playing with ERP around that time, and then started looking at other ways to kind of innovate in the business, like you just mentioned, the IoT stuff. We actually got all those machines on the network. They were all connected to an FTP server, so it was very easy drag and drop sharing with software. And then we actually set up KMV servers, so video keyboard mouse servers for these things, so I could virtually just drop in and control the machines anywhere I was. It was great. But yeah,
I guess yeah, diving into the ERP point a little bit more, kind of what led you guys to realizing that, or I guess you're operations manager now, right? What are your kind of day-to-day tasks, and kind of what leads you to thinking that, maybe you need some more dedicated system for it?
So yeah, once I got into that position, I realized real quick, once I stopped dealing with the day-to-days with the orders and more about how the business flowed, it was not efficient. None of it made sense. All of it was infuriating. Communication, I think that was the biggest identification that we needed something, was there was no communication inside the company. There was no, it was a complete, total chaos barrier. We would get a purchase order in from our customer, or sales order, I guess, sales order in from our customer, and we put it in the computer, and then nothing happened after that. The parts were out on the shop floor. The paperwork went back out to the shop floor. Only one person knew what was going to happen next. And it made no sense. And each day I got more and more frustrated because I just see more and more parts on the floor. And of course, there's only one person who knows. And if that person's not there that day, then I have no idea what's going on in the shop. I got to a point that I was just so tired of hearing, I don't know, or go ask so-and-so, or they know, or, I know it's all in my head. And I'm like, well, great. How's that supposed to help me make the business better? So at that point, that's when I was like, okay, we're getting new management in here. I can't replace the people, but I can replace the software. And we first tried out Job Boss. Job Boss, very much standard quo of the industry. You think ERP, you typically think Job Boss first off, at least with older shops. I mean, funny enough, they have I believe 97 version of Job Boss. Like, still
That's what you guys ended up with?
Yeah. No. I was cleaning out my office. Sure enough, that's the reason why they knew about Job Boss, is because they had the version from the 90s, and then they were upset about the version in the 90s.
Yeah, I'm. If there's ever praise I hear about Job Boss, it's usually about like, oh, that first version. But yeah, that's about the extent of praise.
It was literally a manual and a small pack of floppy disk. Yeah, they were like, "Oh, we already bought it. You can probably get an upgrade." And I'm like, "No, dude." You're like, maybe not.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was definitely to help with communication and organizing. I got tired of having to rely on one particular person to know everything about the shop. One particular person that had all the knowledge, and if they up and disappeared one day, we were
there
screwed.
Went. Yeah.
Yeah. So we tried Job Boss first, and that was a learning curve that I was not prepared for at all. I think for first ERP software and first adoption for a company, and for a 20-something-year-old that up to that point really hasn't managed people, that wasn't the choice for me. It was brutal. My particular notions about how software works and how support should work, how training should work, and all that, right out the door with them. They have their own very unique structure on how they do things, and if you don't do it in that particular order or in their allotted time limit, you're kind of screwed. And it's great if you have your stuff together going into it. I bet you can be super successful with it. I did not have my stuff together. I didn't know how to get my stuff together at that time. I'm dealing with a 3 gigabyte QuickBooks file and nobody that listens to me. How can I get Job Boss running today?
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a challenge.
I mean, how did you kind of approach that? And again, more a high level, right? I mean, is it literally just, here's my stuff from QuickBooks, let's see how we get it in there? Or what's the, where do you kind of go? What do we currently have running? Kind of what was your, take on what was highest priority there?
I think at that point, the only good thing with Job Boss is that it was pretty easy to get. This was the desktop version. So I could very easily just wash my data out and restart fresh anytime I wanted.
Just hook up to that background SQL database.
Yeah. So since their training, at least at that time, was very much time limited, I had X amount of weeks or X amount of months to complete this before they stopped supporting me. I used demo data, and I just got myself trained up, just myself on JobBoss, so that I could turn around and do that. That was the first few months, was just getting myself trained. After that, the data from QuickBooks, that was a challenge. I originally was planning to just upload everything. We haven't moved over. We never have to touch QuickBooks again. And it's possible. It's very doable. They make it easy. They have an importing tool for it. The issue with it is it's your own data. And I guarantee you, if you're using QuickBooks, you have no standardization on how you store your data.
Yep. It does not enforce items. It does not enforce standard prices, standard nothing, right? I mean, your customer list is pretty clean, but that's usually about it.
Yeah, I spent weeks trying to decode the mastery of this. And this was a QuickBooks file that's been growing since the early 2000s. They have just transferred it and upgraded it since QuickBooks came out. And I couldn't make heads or tails of it. I eventually got to a point that was like, you know what? We're getting customer data in there, and we're getting item data, and we're calling it a day. If y'all need anything else, y'all can go look in the filing cabinet.
Yeah, good luck. Yeah.
And that ultimately, that's what we decided on. We waited until the end of a fiscal quarter to transition, and that way it wasn't that we had to constantly reflect back. We made sure that we had like low open orders. I think in total I only had to transfer like 10 or 20 open orders out of the system, and then there was a clear defined cutoff date of data was stored here up until X date, then data is now stored here from that date. All our ERP adoptions, we've always taken that approach of having a strong fiscal date that we separate from. That way, when it comes around tax season and all that fun stuff, it's very easy to go back and being like, okay, well, this quarter is for here, this quarter is stored here. But yeah, once we got the data transferred over into there, the hardest part was the training. After that, JobBoss.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, I was gonna say on that note. Obviously, you had yourself trained to some extent, right? But in order for an ERP to be successful, right, everyone kind of has to contribute to it to some extent. How did you guys approach that? What was your sort of process going into it?
I was kind of in a unique position with that one. Like I said, that was my biggest challenge. The majority of our leadership did not want to go sit on a call. Majority of our leadership did not want to deal directly with JobBoss or another ERP company for training. They basically either wanted to know just how it worked to begin with, or be taught in person. Nobody really offered that at that time. So my approach was getting myself trained up and then turning around and reflecting that. So figuring out how it works top to bottom, and then myself going in and deciding how to distribute that knowledge out within the company. Easier said than done. Mostly because of my position, it made it difficult to get everybody on board with that. I think it'd be a lot easier somebody outside the company telling you to do something than somebody you see every day that you can very easily say no to if you want to. My hardest thing was getting people just on board with it. You know, they would understand the concepts, they would understand how the particular flow would work, but it was actually adopting it, actually wanting to change and actually wanting to adopt it. And that was something I struggled with each single adoption that we did. Actually wanting to use the new system. They knew what they were doing that moment was wrong. They knew what they were doing in that moment was not working. But there was no
people still don't like change very much. Yeah. I mean, we've seen it too, right? Some of the shops that come up to speed the fastest on our system is just where like top level leadership buys in, right? Has the trust of their guys and like sets that direction and puts a timeline on it and kind of pushes it through, right? Because if you lack that, then you're not going to see any of the benefits that, that you were sold or that you came to expect, right? It's
No,
hard to break
exactly.
those habits, though.
We are currently onboarding a customer that's exactly like that. I'm dealing with the 2 top level leaderships for that company, and they come in fully on board that they're ready to transfer out and transfer into StartProto. And here we are on their 3rd meeting, and I think they're ready to go. I mean, there's small changes we got to do with some of the routing stuff, but they're great. And it's because the people who are actually running the company are wanting this change. They're actually wanting to do better. And I mean, I'm grinning ear to ear during our meetings because it's just amazing to see how quickly they've taken off with this. I mean, they're doing great, man.
Yeah. No, I mean, if you set your mind to it, it's pretty easy to get in there and just, I mean, start clicking buttons, and you'll figure out pretty quickly what it does, right?
Well, the biggest thing I think with their attitude going into it is that, they haven't said once to me, oh, well, this is how we do it, so this is how we expect it. And I'm not expecting everybody to come into this saying, oh, well, this is how we do it, this is how we need it, whatever. But it's the mindset behind that. They're not coming in closed-minded. They're not coming in saying, okay, well, this is our process. We really don't want to change it, but we want to at least, please ourselves with saying, oh, well, we bought a new ERP software, so we're doing something, even though we don't want to actually do something. But yeah, they haven't come in with that mindset. Every time they've come in, it's with questions. They're really wanting to learn. They're really wanting to try to do better. They're even reflecting. We're talking about their process. We're talking about things how that translates into StartProto. And I mean, I'm giving them suggestions on how I think it could possibly work for them, because we're pretty modular with how things work inside our system. But they're actually taking the time themselves to reflect on that. They're actually taking the time to say, oh, well, this is our problem. I do see your solution on it. I do see another way that we can attempt it. Maybe we need to figure out what's going to be the best in this middle. And like I said, I'm just grinning ear to ear the whole entire time, because it's so great to see.
Yeah, it's very refreshing, right? I mean, going along, we've implemented a lot of customers now over the last 2.5 years, right? And it's one of those things where the people that come in and are just willing to change, willing to try a new way, right? They'll get a ton of value out of it, right? Because if you
Right.
try to force your bad process onto new software and it's not meant to run that way, you're gonna have a terrible time
Right.
getting pretty much anything done. But yeah, no, it's always good to see when they're coming open.
Yeah, I think the best example from my past on that is our last adoption, and that was into Fulcrum. And at that time, they had exactly what we needed. They had the openness that I was looking for some of the automations that I wanted to start getting into place. And I don't know, from my point of view going into it, they had everything our shop needed at that particular moment. Training was quick. I got myself on board. We got orders within that system within a week. We actually didn't even transfer QuickBooks, because I said, we're doing fully new, fully fresh. We're starting from ground one. I am tired of dealing with this disorganized mess. And we had those tools. We had everything we needed, and it was ready to go. It was just getting people on board. It was just getting people to accept the change. It was just getting people to adjust a slightly different way of doing it. And it all came back to just being a little bit more open-minded about it.
Yeah, I mean, when I guess kind of transitioning to kind of what you're doing at StartProto now, I know you're still relatively green to it, but kind of what best practices have you found you've developed with people to help them get the rest of their shop on board, or help them kind of open up their minds a little bit to how maybe they can use things the best?
I think the biggest thing off of that is having a bit of reflection and being a little bit real with yourself about what you're actually capable and what you're actually trying to do. I think some of the customers that we've dealt with that we've run into a little bit of roadblocks or a little bit of delays here or there, it's them coming in with these really big ideas of, oh, well, we're going to try to do it this way. We're going to completely try to change things 180. or they come in with a super rigid structure of this is how we expect things to be done. This is X, Y, and Z. And those two extremes aren't translating well for growth because, yeah, both are great. It's really great that you have a super defined standard operating procedure. It's super great that you are completely wanting to change and put a facelift on the company. But doing those two extremes and having that mindset coming in, you're already kind of you're getting yourself
setting yourself up for disappointment, right? None of this stuff happens overnight.
Right. And I've noticed with a lot of our customers, if we can get them to calm down and focus on smaller things at a time, as we gradually grow, we gradually change, we gradually put in these new procedures and changes into your company, those end up doing really well. Focusing on the small bits to eventually grow the big thing altogether, it's really helped out. And I mean, I fell victim of this when I first started here. That was my first mindset too. I was like, man, I got all these great ideas. We're going to run with them. And, quickly realized, that's not how things get done. That's not how you can be successful. It's great having the big overarching goal, but forgetting about the small details, it's going to set you back.
Right. Yeah. And I mean, we try to get that a little bit in the sales process too, which is, sometimes obviously you can sell the vision. You can sell like, this is what customers look like at year mark 1. And it's a beautiful thing, right? They run more efficiently. They got 40% extra throughput, all that, but like that doesn't happen overnight, right? So sometimes it's best if you're a company that, let's say you're a company that buys a lot of things and assembles them, or a company that has a lot of material purchasing or whatever, right? Sometimes it's best to just like, let's import your items and you can start using the purchase order system. It'll like slowly fill up your inventory. And then, a month from now, start using work routings, right? You got all your parts in there. Everything works all of a sudden. Wonderful, right? Then maybe you start putting in demand from your sales orders, right? And you can kind of ease your way into it and, make it, what I like to say is like ERPs to a lot of people can feel like a heart transplant, right? Which is this like big, scary thing and you're out for weeks. But I mean, what we've tried to do with the software in a lot of different ways and what we try to push in implementations over the years, just like make it feel like a series of haircuts, right? Like I probably need to go get a haircut too, right? And I've kind of put it off a little bit, but it's not that bad. I'm not like dreading going, right? And I could see myself getting another couple of haircuts in the next few months and probably will be a little bit better every time, right? And I think as much as you can to make it into those bite-sized chunks, it's like the better off you're going to be, right? Because you always feel really great after a new haircut, right? So like just get those little wins in and kind of build the buy-in from your shop and from everyone in the business, kind of through seeing the results of those quick wins, right? As opposed to heart transplant, like, everyone's going to be rooting against you if you try to just do it all at once. And, hopefully you come out the other end alive. But I mean, there's a reason traditional ERPs have a pretty high failed implementation rate, right? And I think it's just because of how people approach it and trying to do it all at once.
Oh, it's definitely a hard lesson to learn. I've done it plenty of times. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've gone into work thinking, this is the day I quit. If I have one more person fight me on this, I'm done. And it's exactly that. I reflect back onto it, and it was because I was trying to do too much all at once. It was exactly, I was trying to completely do a complete heart transplant all at once, and found a lot more success doing exactly what you said, just breaking it up, focusing on the small bits. And honestly, it was a lot more rewarding. We started tracking inventory, and I was just happy to see the numbers in there. I was just, it was great. We never had inventory tracking before. And then we started getting better about actually properly doing our quoting. And we started noticing difference in our price margins and all that. And it, again, small milestone. It wasn't something that was huge for the company, but those little things add up over time.
Right. I mean, like it's one of those things where it sounds deceptively simple to get to the spot where you're quoting work using historical data and like knowing your margins and cost and all this, right? Like that's great. And you can pretty easily, you can get there, right? But all of that is informed by a, pretty well-defined set of processes, pretty well-defined set of ways you assign work, ways that you get people to pick up their work for the day, ways you document things,
Right.
ways you store files. Like all of that has to line up in order for you to sit there when you're quoting the part and, you think to yourself, oh, did we make money on that last time? And you can find it in a matter of a minute or two. But that only works if you've done all of the other stuff, if you've gotten all those haircuts, if you've done all those little modules and had all those little wins, then all of a sudden works great, right? Just a click of a button.
Right.
And it was just deceptive because any ERP, like their demo environment is going to be set up that way, right? I mean, we're a software vendor. We, to some extent live in this world where everything works all the time, right? I like to think that, we at least with people like yourself on the team, and I've spent a good amount of time in shops as well. Like we know it's not always like that, right? And we try to acknowledge that in our process. But it's very easy to see that and think you're going to be there tomorrow. It's just not necessarily the case.
No, that's definitely something I really commend about our onboarding process. The process Shelf had in place before I even got here, how customizable it is, how personalized it is per customer. It's great. Don't really have a rigid flow on it. I know from our side, it'd be nice having nice, neat structure.
Yeah, as a software vendor, it's much easier to hand someone a spreadsheet and say, good luck, have fun, fill it out, let us know when you're done, right? But that doesn't. But
with the customers, it really helps out a lot because we get to evaluate exactly where they're at. We kind of get to evaluate what are the key aspects from them, what are they trying to gain out of this immediately, and we're able to find some middle ground on that and at least get them running. I feel like that's turned around to being a lot more of an successful onboarding experience on that because we're not trying to teach them absolutely everything all at once. I mean, if they're capable of it and they're willing and we're ready to go, yeah, we can get you fully up and running immediately. But a lot of them we have customized and tailored to it to kind of fit a timeline that works well for their company, works well with their goals, and then works well with what they're actually capable of in that moment. And they're running with it.
Yeah, no, exactly. I mean, we, at the beginning of the process, right, we try to outline your goals, try to figure out like, okay, what work needs to be done here, right? What is your step 1, 2, and 3, right? We obviously have suggestions if you're completely out of ideas, but usually try to make that a bit of a consultative, process where we consult with the customer to figure out, all right, what do they need? How can we drive a lot of value in the business, right? Where's the quickest win, and go from there. But yeah, Tyler, I guess with the couple onboardings you've done, what do you feel like you've done wrong? What do you feel like you've learned, right? Like how are you kind of taking those lessons, taking that feedback, and then kind of improving upon the process for the next one?
I think the biggest one goes back into being a little bit overambitious. I think the excitement of it all really got to me. I've really enjoyed this experience. As much as I like complaining about the ERP adoptions in the past, I really enjoyed them. They were a new challenge. They were something I had to figure out. They were something I got to own. It was great. So now being on the other side of it and helping other companies, I'm really excited about it because it was a fun challenge for me. It still is a really fun challenge for me to figure out how to put these Lego pieces together. And yeah, I think the first onboarding or two, I got really excited. I was like, we can do it. Oh man, we'll get it taken care of. Yeah. No, it didn't turn out that way. I feel pretty bad. Greg's helping out a lot. Greg, our sales guy, has been helping out a lot, pick up the pieces on 1 or 2 of them. Currently still picking up the pieces on 1 of them. I went in there and I really thought, they had a really good structure for their items. Everything looked nice and neat, perfect. And I got back on my side and I'm like, okay, I had no idea what I'm doing. I have no idea how to get this together.
Yeah.
I said we were going to have it next week.
Like maybe not. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in the early days, I would still do a good amount of them too. And it's just like, yeah, you try to get it all in with the spreadsheet and some code and you're like, all right, let's see what happens. And the tools are a little better than that now. But the biggest part, right, is just like before you before you even think about importing it, just like really digest the data, figure out like, do you even want that in there, right? Because half the time the answer is no. They're like, oh, well, yeah, I mean, we have 4 versions of that thing. Like, we haven't touched those 3 versions in 4 years. So you're like, well, do you want that in the system? And they're like, well, maybe not. You're like, okay, that's what we thought, right? And that's a lot goes into just digesting it and
yeah, that was definitely my biggest resolution. My biggest revelation on that. I knew mentally that was something to be aware of. I knew mentally that's something I should have mentioned to the customer on that. But I realized I definitely should have actually sat down with them and combed through it. I think mentioning, hey, maybe you want to clean up some of your data, and then being like, oh, no, it's good, and running with that was not the correct solution on that one. Actually going through and double checking their work, making sure that this is the data that they want. One particular customer, we are now importing their data for a 4th time, and we're still getting it ironed out. Poor Greg. Yeah. That's all I can say is poor Greg.
Happens, right?
But it's good. We've been working with them on it, and now they're actually a huge positive of this extended importing time is now our customer actually has a better understanding of their data, actually has a better understanding of what their items are, what are actually make items, what actually are vendor items that they buy, how those work in assembly. So yeah, it kind of sucks that it's been a little bit of extra work, but we've actually been able to really dive deep on their data and actually understand deeper on both sides what it actually is. So yeah, I think going forward, maybe just taking that time to begin with to actually digest the data, like you mentioned, I think that's going to be the solid way to go forward.
Yeah. So I guess shifting gears a little bit, as you've been going along, obviously you've been writing a lot of documentation, kind of talk through what your, and obviously we have a ton of different users, right? We have the users that want really heavy onboardings, and then we have the, hundreds of shops that have just like gone to the website, signed up, and never want to talk to us, right? And like both of those are perfectly fine, right? But kind of how do you take that, kind of how do you take that into writing documentation for, all those different types of users?
So I think my mindset with that is that as much as I love having these huge articles upon articles of data, having it where you can go read a 15-page article about how scheduling works, is that I'm trying to build it in a way that if you need a particular piece of data, you can just go find it. You can just go find the little article snippet that has it, you're good to go. But if you want to sit there and actually read through the 15 pages of everything related to scheduling, you'd be able to do that. I think taking more of that modular approach is the smart way going forward, because it does enable both types of users. Somebody who wants to sit there and actually read everything through, or is just looking for some quick help. It's still new for me, and I'm still trying to figure out the best flow for that. I'm normally used, my notes have always just been for me. I have never really had to write a lot of articles that other people enjoy reading. But I'm glad I'm able to put the skill to use now, and they are turning out pretty well. I mean, brag myself a little bit, but
no, they've been great. Lots of little images and GIFs, and pictures are worth 1,000 words, right? So
that's also the other thing. I know myself. I know being on the other side of that, I don't want to stare at a blank wall full of text and just trying to find my answer. I want some visuals. I mean, call me a millennial on that one, but
yeah, attention span is only so long, right? You gotta
so the GIFs keep me focused. The GIFs keep me focused. But yeah, to sum it up, I think the module-based approach on our articles are the best way to go, and I really like the fact that we have it in our built-in support app within StartProto. That way, all you have to do is just search a keyword, and the little article pops up. You're able to read it in just a minute or two, and then continue on with your day.
Yeah, and actually, I guess we can get into that a second too. But we implemented basically an intercom messenger. That works exactly like an intercom, right? Any user at any time you have a question, Tyler or one of the other people on the team is usually no more than 10 or 15 minutes away. Just type something in there and, or just search for an article, right? Ideally, you do that first before contacting us, but obviously we're happy to hear from you. Yeah, I mean, that's been a super cool tool. Yeah, I guess maybe
I
talk
love
through
it.
some of your interactions with customers on that front.
Oh, I love it. You know, it's so much better than email. It's so much better than this, you know, just this tag of email, having to email something out, wait however long until they see it, and then get back. It feels more connected, and I know that's a very generic corporate term for it, but it's nice. I feel like I'm actually having conversations with our customers. It's not just some relay message. It's an actual real conversation, and I feel like it reduces a lot of frustration on their end, because a lot of times when they reach out, it's very small issues. It's very small things that they just need a little bit of a push with, and we're able to get it taken care of in a few minutes.
Yeah, and
the other thing
the
too
best
is
part of, yeah, go ahead.
no, go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was gonna say, like, the great thing too on our end, right? I mean, obviously email is fine, but if stuff gets sent through Intercom Messenger, we have a ton of telemetry on, like, what page were you on, what button were you trying to hit, right? And we can use that then to figure out, okay, maybe it's a thing on our end, or maybe it's just like a flow that we haven't explained correctly, right? Like, okay, maybe you know, we're trying to make a receipt and ran into an issue where, you know, for whatever reason, you forgot to hit the adjust inventory button and you don't think your inventory is there. And, like, okay, that's an easy one to explain if we know all that, right? But if you write us an email and say, like, receipts don't work, you know, not much we can do with that, right? And
Right.
I mean, we'll dig into those too. Don't get us wrong, but you know, it's really, like, quickened how fast we can respond to things. And if it is a bug, right, there's an additional thing where customer success can kind of push that up to the dev team, and then they get to know exactly what line of code that errored on, right? And that makes things infinitely faster to fix than.
Oh, it is. I mean, even having to help out after hours, I mean, it's no stress. I can be in the middle of dinner and hear the notification pop up, and I mean, I have the solution and answer ready to go, just because of how easy it is for me to get the data I need to help whoever needs the help. And plus, it's fun too. I mean, it's nice having those little pop quizzes every once in a while of, hey, how do you do this? And I have to go, like, a quick mental refresher. Yeah. I don't know. How do you send shipments again? It's 8 o'clock at night. I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, we try to do a good amount of testing in house, right? But, you know, there's only so much, you know, us as, like, 15 people roughly can do versus, you know, obviously we have hundreds of users on the platform every single day, right? They're inevitably going to run into things faster than we will. So it's been super nice to kind of have that community of users to help improve the app and get through things.
Yes, we greatly appreciate the feedback. I will say, being on the other side of it's quite different. It's hard when I'm completely understand your frustration of what you're going through, but at the same time, I'm like, please, we need like 5 minutes to get this figured out.
Yeah.
Our customers are really great about that. They are really good about, you know, if they do find a bug, really great about reporting it, really great about being just a little patient with us while we try to get it figured out.
Yeah. And usually, right, we're developing features, usually, I mean, based on the needs of customers, right? And there's usually a few customers that care about that feature more than the rest of them, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we try to do a pretty good job of all right, if we're going to roll out that feature, right, there's a customer who's going to benefit a ton from it, right? They had a lot of say in the process of how we got to that feature. So we roll it out to just their account first, let them try it. And sometimes they're only trying it for like an hour before they're like, all right, these 4 things aren't going to work for me. Like, all right, that's fine, right? Turn it off. It's like it never happened. So usually by the time things get out to the majority of our users, they're decently well vetted by, you know, those few couple users that decided that they're willing to give a feature a try. So
For sure. Yeah, and I think with our past big major releases that we've had, I think the terms of bugs has definitely slimmed down a lot. I know, at least with me personally, things have been a lot smoother here recently. Also, too, the fact that more and more of our customers are all becoming back onto the same version of the software,
That helps. Yeah.
So helps so much. I cannot tell you how many times I get lost because I'm like, okay, which version is this? Which one am I working on?
Yeah, if
Where's
you have 20
the jobs
different
button?
feature flags and hundreds of accounts, like there's a large combination of things that versions that people could be on. But
Which goes back to us. I mean, we try to be very personalized for our customers, and it's great because exactly what you just said there might be features that somebody just doesn't want to touch. There might be things they might not want to do, jobs they might not want to do X, Y, or Z, and we can at times accommodate to that. Though on my side, like I said, having to jump into different accounts and try to help out, and I'm like, wait a second, why don't you have this? Where's
you don't have. Oh, okay. Yeah.
Oh goodness.
But
Yeah, I was struggling
Cool.
with it with a onboarding experience today. We did a training thing, and I was trying to figure out how to get to the job page to help modify a job, and they didn't have the job page flagged yet. The jobs were enabled, but the page wasn't flagged. So I was trying to find a back door into it, and I was just clicking on everything.
/jobs for those
Yeah.
listening. You'll get there. But if you don't have it turned on, there's probably a reason. But
Goodness.
no, but I guess while we're kind of on the subject of features, obviously, tons of exciting stuff coming out around, a bit more nuanced control on jobs, better control of purchasing around that. Obviously, new op interface, new scheduling page. Then we have some of the other fun stuff coming up with better outside processing module, some other more compliant stuff, right? We just released an ITAR version, so there's tons coming out, but obviously I'm pretty heavy on the product side, but from your perspective, kind of what are you seeing? What are you most excited about showing a customer here in the next few months?
Oh man, I would definitely say it's going to be outside processing. I'd say that that's a feature that I have not seen well implemented in other ERPs, and I think with the feedback that y'all have already collected and some of the designs that y'all have shown, really excited on how that turns out. A lot of other ERPs handle it that it's basically up in the air once you say it's going to outside processing. It might issue a PO for you. It might tell you it needs to ship it, but it doesn't really help guide you. It doesn't allow an operator to know what they need to know. So I'm excited with our designs and so far our kind of thought process on the development that, we're incorporating more of those. We're actually incorporating a workflow. That's what I should have said. We're actually incorporating a workflow to get items outside the shop for outside processing, knowing where they're at, and then bringing those things back. I think anybody who has to deal with vendors and outside processing will be over the moon for that. That's a huge stress point right there. And I know a lot of companies down here that deal very heavily with outsourcing work. They have dedicated people in the office that just manage their vendors, that just manage their outside processes. So having a feature that's already kind of helping manage that, I think will take a lot of stress off of those kinds of people, those kinds of companies. Down here in Houston with a lot of oil and gas and aerospace, that's basically what you do. It's all contract work down here, and you're just subbing it out to the next person. So everybody has a ton of outside processing that's going on, and not a lot of good ERPs manage it. And like I said, there's typically a person that's dedicated to it, and they have to have a calendar managing, I'm expected to get order X back on this date and then Z back on this date. So having features already built in and native showing that, hey, I got this out at this place, and this place, and we're expected to be back on this date. That I feel like that's going to be huge for a lot of people.
Yeah, no, it's when we're definitely trying to do right. There's definitely some shortcuts we could have taken, but we're trying to just do it right the first time, because it is such a core flow for any manufacturer, right? I mean, you could be a job shop that does a lot of that sends a lot of stuff out to anodize. You could be a big or kind of a bigger OEM that just gets a couple of their parts machined, gets another couple powder coated. I mean, there's an infinite amount of possibilities there, and just I think, I'm a little biased. I'm doing a lot of the design for it, but I think it's just going to be a beautiful thing by the time we're done with it, right? And ties super nicely to our purchasing module, and to upgrading kind of how you can buy things, like really understanding how the services are priced, right? Services are priced differently, right? You have a base price, you have different quantity breaks. Accommodating for all of that, together with kind of the core flow of, all right, you got to let someone know the thing needs to leave, right?
Yeah.
All right. With that, you got to generate a packing slip, a purchase order ahead of time, all this other stuff. And just really making that a super smooth process, right? I think we can.
No, and I think that that's going to complement really well to the new updates that we just released. So the jobs and the new scheduling and the new op interface, those things have tremendously helped out the workflow within StartProto. And I think once outside processing goes in, that workflow is going to even get 10 times easier off of that.
Yeah, I mean, even with some of the way our purchasing module is set up now, people have used that for outside processing, and even that's helped a ton, right? To just aggregate demand, right? Like, you don't want to constantly be eating batch costs just because you didn't know you had another 20 parts coming, right? And even today you can set that up in the system, but I think this module is really just going to streamline a ton of that. But cool. Yeah, I guess just kind of getting towards wrapping things up here. I guess with yourself at StartProto, right? Kind of what are you looking forward to over the next few months? Obviously, we went into the features, but just for yourself and kind of for customer success and how you're planning to help mature that organization.
I think the biggest is definitely just growing our community. We have a lot of really great customers, and I really want to make an effort here in the next few months to really try to get more connected with them, figure out what their needs are, how they're feeling with the software, how we can do better. As we mentioned before, hopefully getting a actual community started so that we can all actually interact. They're all great. Everybody that I have met so far, we have such great customers. I love hearing their stories. I love hearing their uniqueness with their products. I have seen some of the coolest things since I've joined StartProto because of our customers. And, I really want to foster that as much as possible. Besides that, for myself, I mean, I'll say y'all have so much to teach me. Y'all are just so intelligent. It just blows my mind sometimes with y'all's thought process. It's like 4D chess sometimes hearing y'all in meetings. And I think that's the other main aspect that is this year is just sitting back and trying to absorb as much information as I can from y'all guys. I mean, I feel like I have just so much to learn from y'all and the different ways of actually going about this stuff. It's great that I had the manufacturing experience, but actually being able to turn around and apply some of this stuff and actually making benefit of it. Y'all guys got it down.
Yeah, no, it's definitely been a journey, right? I'd say we're probably 80% of the way there, right? But, trying to build a cohesive feature set in under 2 years that most of our competition has had 15 or 20 years to develop is a fun challenge, right? But it's also one of those things where because everything that's out there and, my degree's in electrical engineering, my co-founder's degree who leads our tech team is in mechanical engineering, right? Like just applying that really deep systems thinking to okay, what are the fundamental principles at play here? And how can we shortcut a bunch of this stuff, right? In order to, make it easier for ourselves to build, truthfully, right? But it also ends up with a much better, more intuitive product, right? I mean, I think the fact that we're the only self-serve platform of our kind out there at all, right? And we've had users who come in, they use the product, they get a ton of value out of it. They never talk to us, right? I mean, we'd love to talk to them, don't get us wrong, but they figure it out, and you log in to some of their instances, even on the kind of the lower tiers, and they're just as in there as some of the people that we've held their hands every step of the way, right? Yeah. And I think that only is possible because of how we've taken our time and taken our time to some extent thinking about it, but also just being forced to build it quickly and build it with a lot of shared structures and flows in place. And obviously the only way we can get that out to more people is through people like Tyler, helping especially those larger accounts over the line and making sure they actually experience all that value of the stuff that we just poured put our lives of the last 2 or 3 years into building. So yeah.
No, I completely
No,
agree.
any
I mean,
and yeah, go
that
ahead.
80%, I mean, y'all, the framework of StartProto, the way that y'all actually have instant items, amazing. You know, the possibilities are just endless with having actual instant items.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, in the moment, is it
Maybe we'll
overbuilt?
we'll
A
have
little
Zach
bit.
on here at some point, maybe to go into the depths of how it all
Yeah.
works, because it's pretty cool how the we call it basically our like our modeling system that drives so much of the core IP. But
Yeah.
cool. Yeah. Any last words before we wrap it up? Like maybe a summary of kind of, you know, talking to that manufacturer out there who has been thinking about a system for a while but hasn't quite pulled the trigger. What should they be thinking about? How can they prepare themselves? And you know, maybe why they should consider talking to us, right?
I think take a moment to reflect. I mean, if you're in a position where you're going in every morning and you're just stressed, you don't know how you're going to get the day solved, everything is disorganized, and it's not going to change. You know, if you don't actually want it to change, it's not going to change. And it ERP, I know that it doesn't seem like that significant of a process. Oh, it's just keeping my business organized. Oh, it's just keeping the paperwork. It's just for sales orders. It's just for quoting. It's so much more than that. You know, this is your backbone. This is your actual workflow of your business. And reflect on it. I mean, if you're getting to a point that it's too overwhelming, it might be time to try a new ERP system. And I understand that, you know, some of the bigger guys that it's daunting. I mean, it's very daunting to have to go do a demo with them, have to go through a whole onboarding process, have to go through contracts and all that kind of stuff. Play around with StartProto on your free time. Like Tim just said, go sign up. We have a demo, go sign up and try it out. It's worth it. You get as much into it you get as much out to it as you get into it. And I think people forget the benefit of just having the small organizational steps that come along with ERP. The benefits above that. I mean, just being able to actually know from quote to invoice how an order went. I mean, there's so much value behind that. And there's so much value behind that data. And it's just getting there. Pull the trigger.
Yeah, and we try to make that really easy for you, but obviously we just want shops to win, right? And you know, we like to think we've built one of the fastest ways for them to go do that. But ultimately, right, we just want to see manufacturers succeed and put out really cool products and innovations. And yeah, I mean that's what drives a lot of what we do here, and that's what we like to try to enable. So cool. I think that's a good place to end it. Yeah, thanks, Tyler. I'm sure if anyone's listening to this before February 28th of 2024, we got a webinar coming up all about talking about how to choose the right work, right? Because that's incredibly important and something you should do before you do anything else. But cool. Yeah, we'll wrap it up there. Thanks, Tyler.
Awesome. Thank you, Tim.